The Valiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler system. The moment they arrived, every sensor on the ship screamed warnings. The battle was worse than anyone had imagined. "Captain, I am reading debris from at least 20 capital ships," said Lieutenant Sophie Green. Her fingers moved across her console, pulling up data. "The coalition formation is broken. They are scattered across 3 different orbital zones." Jake stood at the center of the bridge, his hands behind his back. He looked calm, but inside his mind was racing. "Show me the Kryn formation." The main screen changed. What appeared was not a military formation at all. It was more like a swarm of insects, thousands of bioships moving in patterns that seemed random, but were actually coordinated with perfect precision. "They are using hive intelligence," Sophie said. "Every ship is connected to every other ship. When one learns something, they all learn it." "How long until they adapt to a new weapon?" Jake asked. "Based on coalition records, approximately 40 minutes for simple weapons. 15 minutes for complex ones." Jake nodded. That was the key. The coalition kept trying new tactics one at a time, giving the Kryn time to adapt to each one. Humans would have to think differently. "Open a channel to the coalition flagship." A moment later, Admiral Vextor appeared on the screen. The alien looked exhausted. His scales, which should have been bright blue, were dull and gray. One of his forearms hung limp at his side. "Captain Morrison," Vextor said, "thank you for coming. I was not certain Earth would respond." "We are here now," Jake said. "I need to see your tactical data, everything, every weapon you have used, every strategy you have tried, every failure. Some of that information is classified." "Admiral, you asked us for help. If you want us to win this battle, I need complete information. Otherwise, we might as well turn around and go home." The alien admiral closed his eyes. Then he nodded. "I will transmit everything to your ship. But Captain, I must warn you. We have tried everything within the bounds of acceptable warfare. The Kryn cannot be defeated by conventional means." "Good thing humans are not conventional," Jake said. The data transfer took 30 minutes. While they waited, Lisa Martinez prepared to board the coalition flagship. She would serve as the liaison between human and alien forces. "Are you ready for this?" Jake asked her before she left. Lisa checked her equipment one last time. "I have been preparing for first contact my entire career. Just not like this." "They are going to be afraid of us," Jake warned. "The coalition spent decades convincing themselves that humans are dangerous. Now we are here to prove them right." Lisa took a transport shuttle across to the coalition flagship. The ship was enormous, easily 10 times the size of the Valiant. As she walked through the corridors, she saw crew members from a dozen different species. They all stopped and stared at her. Some stepped back. Others whispered to each other. She was the first human most of them had ever seen in person. Commander Ryan Hayes accompanied her. He was her second in command, a veteran who had served in Earth's defense forces for 15 years. "They look at us like we are going to attack them," he said quietly. "Can you blame them?" Lisa replied. "They have read our history. They know what we are capable of." The war room was filled with coalition officers. Lisa recognized the species from her studies, Xanthari, with their forearms and scaled skin. Palaxians who looked almost like humans, except for their silver eyes and pointed ears. Tekron, with their insect-like features and compound eyes. A dozen others. When she entered, the room went silent. Admiral Vextor stood at the head of the table. "Officers, this is Commander Lisa Martinez of Earth. She and her people are here to assist us." A Palaxian officer stood up. His name was Commander Thelvon, according to the translation device Lisa wore. "With respect, Admiral, how can one species help when 12 have failed?" Lisa had expected this. "Commander, may I ask you a question?" Thelvon nodded. "In the past 6 months of fighting the Kryn, How many times have you violated the Palaxian Code of Warfare? The alien officer looked offended. Never. The code has guided my people for 8,000 years. It is the foundation of civilized combat. And the Xanthari, Lisa continued, looking at Vextor. How many times have you fired on civilian infrastructure? Never, Vextor said firmly. Such actions are forbidden. Lisa looked around the room. The Techron refused to use biological weapons. The Morthian will not attack an enemy who surrenders. The Kresh consider orbital bombardment to be a war crime. She paused. Every species in this room fights by rules. Ancient rules that define what is acceptable and what is not. Those rules separate us from barbarians, Thalvin said. Those rules are why you are losing, Lisa replied. She activated her datapad and projected images onto the wall. The Kryn do not care about your rules. They adapt to every tactic you use because you fight in predictable patterns. You give them time to learn because you refuse to use certain weapons. You let them retreat and regroup because your codes of honor demand it. Lisa waited for them to quiet down. Humans do not fight like that, she continued. When we go to war, we fight to win. We use every weapon available. We strike without warning. We do not give the enemy time to adapt or recover. That is barbarism, Felvin said. That is survival, Lisa corrected. And right now, survival is what you need. Admiral Vextor raised one of his hands for silence. Commander Martinez, what exactly are you proposing? Let us fight our way. No restrictions, no rules. You asked for Earth's help. This is what Earth's help looks like. Back on the Valiant, Jake gathered his senior officers. Lieutenant Ben Cooper had finished analyzing the Coalition data. Lieutenant Amy Watson had prepared new weapon loadouts. Lieutenant Chris Palmer had the engines running at maximum efficiency. The Coalition has been fighting the Kryn for 6 months. In that time, they have destroyed approximately 15% of the swarm. The Kryn have destroyed 40% of the Coalition fleet. At this rate, the Coalition will be completely destroyed in another 3 weeks. What are our advantages? Asked Ben. We are unpredictable. The Kryn have never fought humans. They do not know our tactics, our weapons, or our thinking. We have one chance to hit them before they adapt. Sophie pulled up a star map. The Kryn bioships regenerate by consuming debris and radiation. Every time the Coalition destroys one of their ships, the swarm feeds on the wreckage. That is why their numbers never decrease. So we need to destroy them in a way that leaves nothing to feed on, Amy said. Exactly. Jake pointed to several areas on the map. We are going to use weapons the Coalition considers too dangerous. Nuclear warheads in space, electromagnetic pulse bombs, viral nanobots designed to attack organic matter. Sir, those are all banned by Coalition treaties, Chris said. We never signed those treaties, Jake replied, and right now, those treaties are killing them. A message came through from Lisa. She had convinced Admiral Vextor to give the humans tactical control of a section of the battle. It was a test. If they could defeat the Kryn forces in that area, the Coalition would consider giving them more authority. How big is the sector they gave us? Jake asked. Small, Lisa's voice came through the speaker. About 1/10 of the battlefield. They still do not trust us completely. 1/10 is enough, Jake said. Tell them to pull all Coalition forces out of Sector 7. We need complete freedom to operate. Captain, they're asking what you plan to do. Jake smiled. It was not a friendly expression. Tell them it is better if they do not know. They can claim ignorance later. The Valiants moved into position. The Guardian and Defiant followed. 3 Earth ships against a portion of the swarm, numbering in the hundreds. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Vextor watched his tactical display. What are they doing? He asked Lisa. Winning, she replied. The human ships opened fire. But they did not use the elegant plasma weapons or precision lasers that the Coalition preferred. They used crude, brutal weapons that had been banned for millennia. Nuclear missiles streaked through space. Electromagnetic pulses shut down the bioship's nervous systems. Clouds of nanobots ate through organic hulls faster than they could regenerate. The Kryn tried to adapt, but before they could understand one attack, another completely different weapon hit them. The humans cycled through their entire arsenal in minutes, never giving the swarm time to learn. "They are not fighting a battle," Felvan whispered in horror. "They are conducting an extermination." Vexter watched as the bioships in Sector 7 died. Not destroyed cleanly, but torn apart, poisoned, and left as toxic waste that even the Kryn could not consume. In 15 minutes, the humans had accomplished what the Coalition had failed to do in 6 months. They had actually reduced the swarm's numbers, but the cost was visible. Sector 7 was now a contaminated zone. It would take centuries to clean up the radiation and biological hazards. "This is what you brought here," Felvan said to Vexter. "Monsters who fight without honor." The Admiral did not answer. He was too busy staring at the tactical display, where the Kryn forces were beginning to retreat from the human ships. Retreat. Something they had never done before. On the Valiant, Jake watched the enemy pull back. That got their attention. Sophie, analysis. "Sir, the Kryn are reclassifying us as a primary threat. They are pulling forces from other sectors to deal with us." "Perfect," Jake said. "That is exactly what we want. Ben, prepare the next phase. It is time to show them what humans really do in war." The Coalition Command Center buzzed with confused voices. Admiral Vexter tried to make sense of what he was seeing on the tactical displays. The human ships were moving in patterns that violated every principle of naval warfare he had learned in 40 years of service. "They are splitting up," said Commander Thelvan. 3 ships against thousands, and they are dividing their forces. This is madness." Lisa stood beside the Admiral, watching the same displays. She understood what Jake was doing, even if the aliens did not. They are not dividing. They are setting a trap. "A trap?" Vexter turned to look at her. "How can 3 ships trap a swarm of thousands?" "Watch and learn, Admiral." The Valiant accelerated toward the main Kryn formation. Sensors showed Jake that the bioships were already adapting to the weapons he had used in Sector 7. Their nervous systems were developing resistance to electromagnetic pulses. The swarm was learning. "They took the bait," Sophie said from her station. "Approximately 2,000 bioships are breaking off to pursue us." "Time until they are in range?" Jake asked. 3 minutes, Sophie replied. "Chris, how are the engines?" Jake pressed. Lieutenant Palmer checked his readouts. "Running at 110%. We can maintain this speed for another hour before we risk burning out." "We will not need an hour." Jake opened a channel to the Guardian and Defiant. "Captains Bryant and Kelly, are you in position?" Captain Nancy Bryant of the Guardian responded first. "In position, sir. The Kryn have not detected us yet." "Good. Wait for my signal." The Valiant continued its run, leading the pursuing Kryn ships deeper into the trap. Behind them, hidden among the debris of destroyed Coalition vessels, the Guardian and Defiant waited in silence. Their reactors were powered down to minimum levels. Their weapons were armed and ready. On the Coalition flagship, Lisa explained the strategy to Vextor. "Your people fight with honor. You announce your presence. You give challenges. You fight face to face. Humans learned long ago that honor gets you killed." "So you fight with deception," Felvan said with disgust. "We fight to win," Lisa corrected. "There is a human general from our ancient history named Sun Tzu. He wrote that all warfare is based on deception. If you can make the enemy think you are weak when you are strong, or strong when you are weak, you control the battle." "And what are the humans doing now?" Vextor asked. "Making the Kryn think they are running away." The pursuing bioships were now within firing range. They launched their organic projectiles at the Valiant. Jake's ship twisted and turned, dodging most of the attacks. A few struck the shields, causing minor damage. "Return fire," Jake ordered. "But miss most of your shots. Make them think we are panicking." Amy Watson targeted the Kryn ships, but deliberately aimed poorly. A few shots connected, but most flew wide. To the swarm, it looked like the humans were scared and running. "They are taking the bait," Sophie reported. "More ships are joining the pursuit. Current count is 3,000. "Perfect. Ben, activate the mines." Lieutenant Cooper entered the command. Behind the Valiant, hidden among the asteroid field they had just passed through, hundreds of small devices came to life. They had been placed there an hour ago by stealth drones, while the Coalition and Kryn were focused on each other. The mines were not explosive. They were worse. Each one contained a compressed packet of nanobots, programmed to attack organic matter. When the Kryn bioships flew into the field, the mines released their payloads. Billions of microscopic machines swarmed over the living vessels, eating through their hulls, destroying their regenerative systems, and shutting down their neural networks. "Direct hit on 80% of the pursuing force," Sophie announced. "The Kryn are trying to adapt, but the nanobots are evolving faster than they can respond." "Now," Jake said, "Guardian and Defiant, execute." The two hidden ships powered up and opened fire. They hit the confused Kryn formation from behind, catching them between the nanobot swarm and a wall of missiles and energy weapons. The Valiant turned and added its own firepower to the assault. The Kryn tried to fight back, but they were surrounded and already damaged. In 20 minutes, 3,000 bioships were destroyed. This time, there was no debris left for them to feed on. The nanobots had consumed everything organic, leaving only inert dust. On the Coalition flagship, silence filled the command center. Every officer stared at the displays in shock. "Impossible," Felvan whispered. 3 ships destroyed 3,000. "Not impossible," Lisa said. "Just human." Admiral Vextor sat down heavily in his command chair. "I begin to understand why the Council voted to isolate Earth." Lisa nodded. "You were afraid we would bring this to your worlds, and we were correct to be afraid." The battle was far from over. The main Kryn swarm still numbered in the tens of thousands, but for the first time in 6 months, they had taken real losses. The swarm was now treating the human ships as the primary threat, ignoring the Coalition forces to focus on the Valiant and its companions. Jake called his officers together in the briefing room. For the first time, Earth was fighting a real war against an alien enemy, and they were winning. "The Kryn are adapting to our tactics," Jake began. "The ambush strategy will not work a second time. We need something new." "Sir, I have been analyzing their hive intelligence," Sophie said. "Every bioship is connected through organic communication channels. It is how they share information so quickly." "Can we disrupt those channels?" asked Ben. "Maybe, but I have a better idea." Sophie pulled up a diagram. "What if we feed them false information?" Jake leaned forward. "Explain." "We capture one of their bioships. We hack into its communication system. Then we use it to send bad data to the rest of the swarm. Make them think we are somewhere we are not. Make them adapt to weapons we are not using." "But how do we capture a bioship without destroying it?" "Very carefully," Sophie replied with a smile. The plan was risky. Lieutenant Chris Palmer would pilot a small transport ship into the middle of a Kryn formation. The transport would have minimal shields and weapons, making it look like an easy target. When the bioships attacked, they would try to capture it rather than destroy it. That was when the trap would spring. "You want me to let them capture my ship," Chris said slowly, "with me on it." "Only for about 30 seconds, Jake said. "Then we pull you out." Chris thought about it. "What happens if something goes wrong, and you cannot pull me out?" "Then we make sure your sacrifice is not wasted." Jake put a hand on the younger officer's shoulder. I will not lie to you. This is dangerous. But if it works, we can turn the swarm's greatest advantage into a weakness. I am in. 6 hours later, Chris guided his small transport toward a group of Kryn bioships. His heart pounded in his chest. The cockpit was cramped and the shields were barely functional. He was bait, and he knew it. Come on, he muttered. Take the bait. The bioships noticed him. 3 of them broke formation and moved to intercept. Chris let them get close, then started evasive maneuvers. Not too good, or they would just destroy him. Not too bad, or they would suspect a trap. The lead bioship extended tendrils of organic matter toward his transport. They grabbed the hull and started pulling him in. Now would be a good time, Chris said into his radio. The Valiant appeared from behind a nearby moon. It fired a single, precise shot that severed the tendrils without destroying the bioship. At the same moment, a tractor beam locked onto Chris's transport and yanked him clear. The damaged bioship tried to flee, but electromagnetic nets deployed from the Guardian wrapped around it, shutting down its systems. The Defiant moved in and used magnetic clamps to secure the creature. We got it, Jake said. Chris, status. Alive, sir, though I may need a few minutes to convince my hands to stop shaking. The captured bioship was brought aboard the Guardian. A team of scientists from Earth, led by Dr. Helen Foster, immediately began studying it. They had 12 hours to figure out how its communication systems worked before it died or the swarm attempted a rescue. Lisa watched from the Coalition flagship as the humans worked. She was on a video call with Dr. Foster, who was dissecting the bioship's neural tissue. This is fascinating, Helen said, her hands covered in protective gloves as she worked. The organic computer system is more advanced than anything we have. But it is also vulnerable. There are no firewalls, no security protocols. The swarm never expected anyone to try hacking their communication network. Can you do it? Lisa asked. Give me 8 hours. Admiral Vextor stood beside Lisa, watching the human scientist work. Your people are very good at finding weaknesses. We have had a lot of practice, Lisa replied. Humans have been fighting each other for thousands of years. We know every possible way to hurt, trick, and defeat an enemy. That should not be something to be proud of. Lisa turned to look at the alien admiral. No, it should not. But when the alternative is extinction, we will use every tool we have, even our worst qualities. 7 hours later, Dr. Foster emerged from her lab. She looked exhausted, but excited. We are in. I can send signals through the bioship's communication system. The swarm will think the information is coming from one of their own. What kind of information can we send? Jake asked. Anything you want. Fake sensor data, false tactical information, incorrect adaptation protocols. The possibilities are endless. Jake gathered his officers once more. This time, Lisa joined them via video link from the Coalition flagship. We have a weapon the Kryn cannot defend against, Jake began. Their own communication network. We can make them see things that are not there. Make them adapt to the wrong threats. Turn their intelligence against them. It will not work forever, Sophie warned. Eventually they will figure out the data is false. Then we need to end this battle quickly, Jake said. One massive assault while they are confused. Hit them with everything we have, everything the Coalition has, all at once. The Coalition will never agree to use the weapons we are using, Lisa said. They do not have to. We just need them to attack in coordination with us. Combine their honorable tactics with our dishonorable ones. Jake looked at each of his officers. This is it. One chance. If we fail, the Kryn will learn from our tactics and become even more dangerous. And if we succeed, Ben asked, then we save billions of lives, and prove that humanity deserves a place in the galaxy. Jake paused. even if that place is as the monsters everyone fears. The Coalition War Council met one final time before the assault. Every species representative was present, their faces showing various expressions of doubt, hope, and fear. Admiral Vextor called the meeting to order. Captain Morrison has requested full coordination between Coalition and human forces, Vextor announced. He believes we can defeat the Kryn swarm in a single, decisive battle. Commander Thelvan immediately objected. Admiral, we have seen the human methods. They use weapons we banned thousands of years ago. They fight without honor. How can we coordinate with such tactics? Jake's hologram appeared in the center of the room. Commander, I understand your concerns, but answer me this. Would you rather die with honor, or live to see tomorrow? That is a false choice, Thelvan replied. We can fight honorably and still win. You have been trying that for 6 months, Jake said flatly. How is it working out for you? The room fell silent. Every officer present knew the truth. The Coalition was losing. Without the human intervention, they would have already been destroyed. What is your plan, Captain? Asked a Techron officer named Commander Zeltar. Jake activated a tactical display. The Kryn use hive intelligence. Every ship shares information instantly. We have compromised their communication network. We can feed them false data, make them see threats that do not exist. Deception, Thelvan muttered. Tactics, Jake corrected. While they are confused, we hit them from multiple directions simultaneously. The Coalition forces will attack from the front, using your standard weapons and formations. The Kryn will focus on you, because you are the known threat. You want us to be bait, Vextor said. I want you to be the anvil. We will be the hammer. While the swarm is focused on your fleet, human forces will strike at their flanks and rear. We will use weapons that cause maximum damage and prevent regeneration. Lisa spoke up from her position at the Coalition flagship. Admiral, the captain is right. This is our best chance, maybe our only chance. Vextor looked around the room at his officers. He saw doubt, but he also saw desperation. They had lost too many ships, too many friends. Very well. The Coalition fleet will coordinate with the human assault. But Captain, I want your word that you will limit collateral damage as much as possible. Jake hesitated. Admiral, I can promise to try, but war is messy. People die, sometimes innocent people. If we focus too much on avoiding casualties, we will lose. I know, Vextor said quietly. Do what you must. The preparation took 6 hours. Coalition forces moved into position, their ships forming a traditional battle line facing the main Kryn swarm. It looked like they were preparing for another conventional engagement. The swarm began to adapt its formation to match. Meanwhile, the human ships remained hidden, using stealth technology and the debris field to mask their presence. On the Valiant, Jake watched as Dr. Foster prepared to send false data through the captured bioship's communication system. Ready to transmit, Captain, Helen said. Send the first package. False sensor data flooded into the Kryn communication network. The swarm suddenly detected a massive Coalition fleet approaching from the galactic south. Thousands of ships that did not actually exist. The Kryn began diverting forces to meet this phantom threat. It is working, Sophie reported. Approximately 30% of their forces are breaking off to intercept the fake fleet. Send package 2. This time, the Kryn learned that the Coalition had developed a new weapon that could disrupt their regeneration. The swarm began growing new armor and adapting their bioships to counter this non-existent threat. They are wasting resources on adaptations they do not need, Ben said with satisfaction. This is perfect. The Coalition fleet opened fire. Plasma cannons and precision lasers struck the Kryn line. The bioships started to return fire, but they were confused. Their sensors showed threats that did not match reality. Their recent adaptations were useless against the actual weapons being used. Now, Jake ordered, all human ships, attack. The Valiant, Guardian, and Defiant emerged from hiding and struck the Kryn flanks. Nuclear warheads detonated among the bioships. Electromagnetic pulse weapons shut down entire sections of the swarm. Clouds of viral nanobots spread through their formations like a plague. The Kryn tried to adapt, but the false data kept confusing them. They were adapting to the wrong threats, while the real threats destroyed them. Their hive intelligence, their greatest strength, had become a weakness. On the Coalition flagship, officers watched in awe as the human tactics unfolded. They are using the swarm's own communication system against them, Zeltar said. Brilliant and terrible. This is what humans do, Lisa said. We find the enemy's strength and turn it into a weakness. We learned long ago that you do not fight on your enemy's terms. You change the rules. The battle raged for 3 hours. The Kryn swarm fought desperately, but they were being destroyed faster than they could regenerate. Every time they tried to adapt to the human weapons, the false data confused them. Every time they tried to coordinate a counterattack, the Coalition forces hit them from a different angle. Captain Nancy Bryant of the Guardian pushed her ship deep into enemy territory. Launching final payload, she announced. Her ship released a dozen large missiles, each containing billions of nanobots, programmed to attack organic matter. The missiles detonated throughout the Kryn formation. Within minutes, thousands of bioships began to dissolve as the nanobots consumed them from the inside out. Captain, we are detecting a change in Kryn behavior, Sophie suddenly announced. They are not adapting anymore. They are retreating. Jake could hardly believe it. Confirm that. Confirmed. All Kryn forces are breaking off and heading for the edge of the system. On the Coalition flagship, celebrations erupted. Officers from a dozen species cheered and embraced each other. They had been fighting a losing battle for 6 months. Now, suddenly, impossibly, they were winning. Admiral Vextor did not celebrate. He looked at the tactical display showing the battlefield. Thousands of destroyed ships, both Coalition and Kryn. Radiation clouds that would take centuries to dissipate. Biological contamination that made entire sections of space uninhabitable. This is what victory looks like when humans fight, he said to Lisa. This is what survival looks like, she replied. You are alive. Your worlds are safe. That is what matters. At what cost? Lisa had no answer for that. The human ships pursued the retreating Kryn forces. Jake wanted to make sure they did not regroup and return. Stay on them. Do not let them rest or recover. For another hour, the human ships chased the swarm across the star system. Every time the bioships tried to slow down or stop, the humans attacked again. Nuclear missiles, electromagnetic pulses, nanobot clouds. The Kryn had no defense that worked. Finally, the swarm made one last desperate jump to faster-than-light speed and fled the system entirely. They are gone, Sophie confirmed. Long-range sensors show them heading back toward their home territory. Do we follow? Ben asked. Jake thought about it, then shook his head. No. We came to defend this system, not to start a war of conquest. Let them run. The Valiant returned to the Coalition fleet. The battlefield was littered with debris, but the immediate threat was over. Kepler 22b was safe. The 40 inhabited systems beyond it were safe. But the cost was visible everywhere. The Coalition had lost half its fleet. Thousands of brave warriors had died. And the battlefield itself was now a toxic wasteland that violated every environmental protection treaty the galaxy had. Admiral Vextor invited Jake to meet in person on the Coalition flagship. When Jake materialized in the transporter room, he saw alien crew members staring at him. Some looked grateful. Others looked frightened. Vextor met him in the corridor. Walk with me, Captain. They walked through the ship in silence for a few minutes. Finally, Vextor spoke. You saved us. I want you to know that I am grateful. But, Jake prompted, I am also terrified. The Council was right to isolate Earth. Your species is too dangerous for the galaxy. Because we win battles? Because of how you win battles. Vextor stopped walking and turned to face Jake. You used nuclear weapons in space, biological weapons. You turned our enemies' intelligence against them. You showed no mercy, no restraint, no honor. I showed survival, Jake replied. Admiral, you asked us for help. This is who we are. We do not fight for glory or honor. We fight to protect our people and our allies. And we will do whatever it takes. That is what frightens us, Vextor said. A species that will do anything is unpredictable, dangerous. But useful, Jake pointed out. When the next crisis comes, when the next enemy appears that you cannot defeat with honor and rules, you will call us again. Vextor did not deny it. Perhaps. But Captain, I hope we never need to, for all our sakes. They continued walking until they reached the observation deck. Through the large windows they could see the debris field. Thousands of pieces of destroyed ships floating in space. How many died today? Jake asked quietly. Approximately 50,000 Coalition personnel. Perhaps 200,000 Kryn bioships, though it is hard to count with certainty. Jake closed his eyes. 250,000 dead. The largest battle humanity had ever participated in. And they had won. The history books will record this as a great victory, Vextor said. But I will remember it as the day we learned to fear humanity. Then let that fear keep the peace, Jake replied. Because if the galaxy ever threatens Earth or our friends, they will learn that today was us being gentle. The two commanders stood in silence, looking out at the stars. The battle was over. The Kryn were defeated. But the real consequences were just beginning. 3 days after the battle, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. Representatives from 47 member species gathered in the Grand Chamber on the neutral station of Unity Prime. Admiral Vextor was called to give his report. The chamber was massive, designed to accommodate the various sizes and environmental needs of different species. Vextor stood at the center podium, his 4 arms clasped behind his back. Above him, holographic displays showed the aftermath of the Battle of Kepler-22b. The Kryn swarm has been driven from Coalition territory, Vextor began. The immediate threat is over. Kepler-22b is safe, as are the 40 systems beyond it. Billions of lives have been saved. At what cost? Asked High Counselor Murdoch. A being made of crystalline structure that communicated through light pulses. The battlefield is a contaminated wasteland. It will take 5 centuries to make that region of space safe again, the speaker said. The cost was necessary, Vextor replied. The Coalition was losing. Without intervention, we would have been destroyed. Without human intervention, corrected Counselor Pavesh, a Palaxian elder. We asked the one species we swore never to contact. We invited the monsters into our space. Vextor bristled at that. The humans are not monsters. They are warriors who fight by different rules than ours. They have no rules, Pavesh countered. We have watched their tactics. Nuclear weapons, biological warfare, deception and ambush. These are not the methods of civilized beings. Civilized beings were losing, Vextor said sharply. Our rules, our honor, our thousands of years of tradition were not enough. The humans did what we could not. The council chamber erupted in arguments. Some supported Vextor's position. Others demanded that humanity be punished for violating galactic law, even though they had never agreed to follow it. High Counselor Murdoch called for silence. We must decide what to do about Earth. They have proven themselves capable of defeating threats we cannot. They have also proven themselves willing to use methods we find abhorrent. The question before us is simple. What role should humanity play in the galaxy? On Earth, Jake Morrison sat in the debriefing room at Defense Command Headquarters. General Scott Hughes and a dozen other high-ranking officers listened to his report. The Coalition won the battle, Jake concluded. But they are terrified of us. They saw what we are capable of, and it confirmed every fear they had when they first isolated Earth. Did they say whether they will lift the quarantine? Asked General Hughes. Admiral Vexter was grateful, but made it clear that the Council would need to discuss our status. My impression is that most of them want us to stay isolated. After we save them? Lieutenant Sophie Green said angrily. She had accompanied Jake to Earth for the debriefing. That is ridiculous. Not from their perspective, Lisa Martinez said. She sat at the far end of the table, still exhausted from her weeks with the Coalition forces. We showed them that humans are exactly what they feared. Effective, brutal, and willing to do anything to win. Is that such a bad thing? Asked Lieutenant Ben Cooper. It is if you are not human, Lisa replied. Imagine if the roles were reversed. Imagine if there was a species out there that fought without rules, that used weapons we consider evil, that turned our own strengths against us. Would we want them as neighbors? The room fell silent. General Hughes leaned back in his chair. Wait for them to decide our fate? We prepare, Jake said. We keep building our defenses. We continue developing our technology. And we make it very clear that Earth will defend itself if threatened. The galaxy now knows what we can do. Let them decide if they want us as friends or enemies. Back on Unity Prime, the Galactic Council reached a decision. High Counselor Merdak announced it to Admiral Vextor. The Council has voted. Earth will remain under quarantine. No human ships will be permitted beyond their solar system, except in cases of emergency. Trade and diplomatic relations will be limited to designated neutral stations. Vextor had expected this, but it still disappointed him. The humans saved us. This is how we repay them? The humans frightened us, Merdak corrected. They prove that they are capable of great destruction. Until we are certain they can be trusted, they must remain isolated. When the next enemy appears that we cannot defeat with our civilized methods, then we will call them again, Merdak admitted. We will use them as a weapon of last resort, but we will not invite them to join us as equals. Vextor felt anger rising in him. That is cowardly. That is survival, the High Counselor replied. The same principle the humans use to justify their methods. We do what we must to protect our people. The Admiral had no response to that. The official message was transmitted to Earth 3 days later. Commander Lisa Martinez received it first at Monitoring Station 12. She read it twice, then called General Hughes. They are maintaining the quarantine, sir. We are still isolated. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then Hughes sighed. I suppose we should have expected that. Did they say anything else? Lisa scrolled through the message. There is a personal note from Admiral Vextor. He says, the Council has established a new protocol. In the event of a crisis that threatens galactic security, Earth may be contacted for assistance, but only as a last resort. So we are their attack dog, Hughes said bitterly, kept in the kennel until they need us to bite something. That is one way to look at it, sir. How do you look at it, Commander? Lisa thought carefully before answering. I think we proved something important. We proved that humanity is a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy tried to ignore us, tried to pretend we did not exist. Now they cannot. They know what we are capable of. That gives us power, even if we are still isolated. Captain Jake Morrison received the news while still on Earth. He was at home, trying to rest after weeks of combat and debriefing. When his communication device buzzed with the message from the Council, he read it without surprise. His wife, Karen Morrison, found him sitting on their porch, staring at the stars. They said no, did not they? She asked. Jake nodded. We are still quarantined. still the dangerous species that everyone is afraid of. Karen sat beside him. Are they wrong to be afraid? No, Jake admitted. We did terrible things in that battle, things that will haunt me for the rest of my life. We used weapons that caused incredible suffering. We showed no mercy. I became the monster they accused us of being. You saved billions of lives. I know, but the cost. Jake trailed off, still staring at the stars. Karen, there were moments during the battle when I made decisions that killed thousands. I ordered the use of weapons that poisoned entire regions of space. I turned the enemy's intelligence into a weapon and used it to slaughter them. And I did it all without hesitation, because I knew it was necessary. That does not make you a monster, Karen said gently. It makes you a soldier who had to make impossible choices. The aliens think I am a monster. The Council certainly does. The aliens asked for your help. They wanted you to save them. They just did not want to see how you did it. Karen took his hand. You did what humans have always done. You survived. You protected those who needed protection. If that makes you a monster in their eyes, then so be it. On the Coalition flagship, now in orbit around Kepler-22b, Admiral Vextor stood in his ready room. He had one final task to complete before returning home. He composed a personal message to Captain Jake Morrison. It took him an hour to find the right words. Captain Morrison, I want you to know that I argued for Earth's inclusion in the Galactic Coalition. I told the Council that you earned the right to be recognized as equals. They disagreed. They are afraid of what humanity represents. I wish I could say they are wrong, but I cannot. Your methods are effective but terrifying. However, I want to thank you personally. You saved my fleet, my people, and billions of civilians. I will never forget that. I hope that someday our species will be able to stand together as friends, rather than merely as allies of convenience. Until then, know that you have my respect and my gratitude. He sent the message, knowing it might be the last communication between their species for years or decades. Lieutenant Sophie Green compiled the final after-action report for Earth Command. The statistics were stark. 3 human ships had participated in the battle. 0 human casualties. Kryn losses were estimated at over 200,000 bioships. Coalition losses had been cut by 70% after human intervention. The report concluded with a simple statement. Human tactics proved decisive. However, the political cost may be significant. The galaxy now fears humanity more than ever. 6 months later, life on Earth had returned to normal. The quarantine remained in effect. Human ships patrolled the solar system, but went no farther. Scientists continued their research. The military continued training. But everyone knew something had changed. Humanity had proven itself on the galactic stage. They had shown what they could do when pushed into action. They had saved billions of lives and defeated an enemy that the rest of the galaxy could not stop. Commander Lisa Martinez was promoted to captain and given command of Monitoring Station 12. She spent her days watching the galaxy, scanning for threats, listening to the communications of species that still refused to acknowledge Earth's existence. One day, her communication officer called her attention to an unusual signal. Captain, we are picking up a distress call from the Techron homeworld. It sounds like they are under attack. Lisa pulled up the data. Her heart sank. Another threat. Another crisis that the Coalition might not be able to handle on their own. Should we forward this to Earth Command? The officer asked. Lisa hesitated. Then she nodded. Yes, send it immediately. And prepare a message for the Coalition. Let them know we received their distress call. Captain, they did not send it to us. We just intercepted it. I know, but they will send it to us eventually. They always do. Lisa looked at the stars. When they are desperate enough, they will call, and we will answer, because that is what humans do. We show up when everyone else has given up. We do the terrible things that need to be done. We become the monsters that save the day. The officer looked uncomfortable. Is that really who we want to be? Lisa replied, It is who we are. The galaxy tried to isolate us, but they need us. And until they are ready to accept us as equals, we will be their weapon of last resort. The species they only call when everything else has failed. The one species all empires avoided. She pulled up the tactical display, showing the Techron distress signal. And when they call, we will answer. Because someday, maybe, they will realize that monsters who fight for good are better than heroes who fail. Across the galaxy, the message spread quietly through coalition channels. The Techron were under attack. Their defenses were failing. The council was meeting to discuss options. And in the back of every mind, the same thought appeared. A thought that brought both relief and dread in equal measure. If things got bad enough, they could always call the humans. The species that fought without rules. The species that turned strengths into weaknesses. The species that did whatever was necessary to win. The species every empire avoided until they had no other choice. Humanity waited in their corner of space, ready to answer the call they knew would eventually come. They had proven what they were capable of. They had shown the galaxy both their power and their willingness to use it. The Battle of Kepler 22b was over, but for humanity, it was just the beginning. They had earned their place in the galaxy through blood and fire. Whether the galaxy liked it or not, humanity was no longer a species that could be ignored. They were the monsters who saved the day. The transport ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a shudder that Jack Morrison felt in his bones. Through the viewport, he could see Kepler 7 station hanging in the darkness of space like a massive wheel of metal and light. It was bigger than anything humanity had ever built. The station held the Interstellar Combat Training Facility, and Jack was about to walk into a place where humans were not welcome. Katie Sullivan floated up beside him in the zero-gravity section of the transport. Her red hair drifted around her face like a halo. She had been quiet for most of the 3-day journey from Mars, but now she smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile soldiers wore before a hard fight. "Look at the size of that thing," she said. "Makes you wonder what they're compensating for." Danny Cruz laughed from his seat near the back. He was checking his gear for the 5th time. Danny always checked his gear too many times. It was how he dealt with nerves. "I read that Kepler 7 has trained soldiers from 43 different species. You know how many of those species think we belong here?" "None," Jack said. He had done his research too. Humanity had only joined the galactic community 20 years ago. 20 years was nothing compared to the thousands of years most other species had been traveling the stars. To them, humans were children playing at war. The docking process took another hour. When the airlock finally opened, the 3 humans grabbed their bags and stepped into a corridor that seemed designed to make them feel small. The ceiling stretched up 3 stories high. The walls were covered in symbols and writing from dozens of languages. Aliens of every shape and size moved through the corridor, and not one of them looked at the humans with anything except contempt or amusement. A massive creature with gray skin and 4 arms stopped in front of them. It stood at least 8 feet tall, and its muscles bulged like it could tear metal with its bare hands. This was a Korvoxy, one of the warrior species that had fought in 100 galactic wars. "Move, little ones," the Korvoxy said in heavily accented English. "You block the path." Jack stepped aside, and the creature lumbered past without another word. Katie watched it go with narrowed eyes. "Friendly place," she muttered. They found their way to the registration hall by following the color-coded lines on the floor. The hall was enormous, filled with cadets from across the galaxy. Jack saw beings that looked like walking trees, others that seemed to be made of living crystal, and one group that appeared to be floating balls of light held together by force fields. Humanity's 3 representatives looked very ordinary by comparison. The registration officer was of Vrelnath, a species that ran most of the galaxy's military operations. She had pale blue skin and eyes that sat on the sides of her head like a lizard. When she looked at the humans, her lips curled back to show pointed teeth. "Names," she said, not looking up from her computer screen. Jack Morrison, Earth Defense Force. Katie Sullivan, Mars Colonial Guard. Danny Cruz, Lunar Academy. The officer typed slowly, as if entering their names into the system was a waste of her time. "You 3 are the human entries this cycle. The instructors have been informed. Dormitory assignments are on your data tablets. Classes begin at 0600 hours. Do not be late. The Vrelnath do not tolerate weakness or failure." "We won't be late," Jack said. The officer finally looked up at him. Her eyes were completely black, without any white at all. "You will fail anyway. Humans always fail. Your species is too slow, too weak, and too stupid to compete here. In the 5,000-year history of this academy, no human has ever passed the final examination. Most do not survive the first month." Katie stepped forward, her jaw tight. "Then I guess we'll be the first." The officer made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Confidence is not the same as ability, human. You will learn this." They took their tablets and left the hall. The dormitory was a long walk through winding corridors. Other cadets passed them, and Jack noticed how they all gave the humans a wide berth, as if being near them might be contagious. One group of cadets, tall and thin with too many joints in their arms, actually pointed and laughed. The dormitory room was small and plain. 3 beds, 3 lockers, 1 window that looked out into space. It was designed for efficiency, not comfort. Jack threw his bag on the nearest bed and sat down hard. The mattress was firm, probably too firm, but he had slept on worse. "They really hate us here," Danny said, unpacking his clothes into his locker. "I mean, I expected some pushback, but that registration officer looked at us like we were insects." Katie stood by the window, staring out at the stars. "Let them hate us. Hate won't help them when it's time to prove what we can do." Jack knew she was right, but it still bothered him. Humanity had worked so hard to earn a place at this academy. Earth had sent its best pilots, its smartest tacticians, and its most skilled fighters. And still, the galaxy saw them as a joke. "Did you read the statistics?" Danny asked quietly. "The final exam. Only 12 beings have passed it in 5,000 years. 12 out of millions who tried." "I read it," Jack said. "I also read that the test is designed to be impossible. It pushes you past every limit. Reaction time, decision-making, combat skill, all of it." Katie turned from the window. "Then we train harder than everyone else. We study longer. We push ourselves further. That's what humans do, right? We don't give up." Jack stood and walked to where his teammates were standing. He put one hand out, palm down. Katie put her hand on top of his without hesitation. Danny added his a moment later. "We're not here to just pass," Jack said. "We're here to show them what humans can do. We're here to make them remember us." 3 humans against the entire galaxy, Danny said with a grin. "I like those odds." They spent the rest of the day exploring the facility and learning the layout. The training halls were vast chambers, filled with equipment that looked both familiar and alien. There were shooting ranges that extended for miles, gravity chambers that could simulate any planetary condition, and combat arenas with holographic systems more advanced than anything on Earth. That evening, they attended the orientation assembly. 2,000 cadets from 43 species filled the main auditorium. The humans sat near the back, aware of the stares and whispers around them. A Vrelnath commander walked onto the stage. He was even bigger than the registration officer, with scars covering his arms and neck. His uniform was decorated with medals and ribbons that spoke of countless battles won. This was Commander Zelthron, the head instructor of the facility. "Welcome to Kepler 7, he said, his voice booming through the hall without need for amplification. "You are here because your species believes you are the best they have to offer. Most of you are wrong. Most of you will fail. Some of you will quit. A few of you will die." The room went silent. Even the confident warriors from the strong species looked uncomfortable. "In 3 months, you will face the final examination," Zelthron continued. "It is a test that has broken the spirits of the galaxy's greatest fighters. It will show you the limits of your abilities. It will prove whether you deserve to be here or whether you are simply wasting everyone's time." His black eyes scanned the crowd and stopped on the humans. "I see we have Earthlings among us this cycle. How amusing. Perhaps you will last longer than the previous groups. Perhaps not. Time will tell." Jack felt Katie's hand grip his arm, holding him in place before he could do something stupid. He took a deep breath and stayed seated. Zelthron smiled, showing all his teeth. "Training begins tomorrow at dawn. I suggest you all get sleep. It will be the last good sleep many of you ever have." The assembly ended and the cadets filed out. Jack, Katie, and Danny walked back to their dormitory in silence. Tomorrow, the real test would begin. Tomorrow, they would start proving that humanity belonged among the stars. Jack lay in his bed that night, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything the commander had said. Humans were slow. Humans were weak. Humans always failed. He intended to prove every single one of those statements wrong.